Policy strategist and governance expert Sam Amadi joins me from Abuja, while a social reform advocate, Evans Ufeli, joins me from Lagos. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the news tonight. I'll start with you, Sam Amadi. This isn't the first time Governor Zulum has called out suspected saboteurs of his government's fight against Boko Haram. Does this latest statement about politicians and members of the armed forces acting as informants for the insurgents surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me because we've got enough anecdotes, in the years past about serving officers, those who were in the fights against insurgents in the northeast and northwest, for maybe a compromise of their war plans, their fights, and things like that. Again, even when Jonathan was there were reports about efforts being compromised through what appeared like insider action. People, officials who themselves were either sympathetic or somewhat in what way, were not well defined in their approach to the crisis. So I'm not surprised. I mean, coming up again from Governor Zulum, it suggests that there's a lot of credence to the fact that the government is dealing with internal sabotage, even among its top officials and even perhaps some of the military commanders.
Let me bring in Evans very quickly to respond to the same question I asked you. Are you surprised by the governor's claims that there are people in the government trying to sabotage his efforts to end the Boko Haram crisis?
I'm not surprised at all. When a governor speaks, you better listen because they are exposed to very deep information that an ordinary person might not have access to. They have access to this information. And he knows exactly what he's saying. Just some days ago, I saw on the internet where one of the soldiers was caught with ammunition that he has smuggled for the insurgents. He confessed to the offense. Okay, and we have politicians who are also doing this to score political cards and to gag different kind of interests at the expense of the Nigerian state. As we speak, no one is watching outside the Nigerian state, and that is quite very unfortunate that the country that made us who we are will find very dubious people in our midst who are aiding and abating crime and criminality, joining forces with evil to wrought incalculable damage in our society. It's quite very disconcerting, to say the least. And the government must not just stop at talking, at telling us that there are people. There are people. We have to go after them. The sponsors of Boko Haram that they said they are going to prosecute, they were unnamed. How far has that case gone? Who and who have been prosecuted so far? Where is the level? At what level is this case? Are we serious about this? If we are serious, the government would by now would have at least gotten some level of conviction. But you don't see prosecution going on. So how are you going to end it when you allow the sponsors to work freely?
Right.
And at the end of the day, the whole thing is really, really bad.
Let me bring in Sam here. I do hope that your sound is a lot better because earlier it was a bit wobbly. So if it is better,
okay. Yeah, I think so. Maybe
my question then would be, would it make any difference if Governor Zulum reveals the names of the suspected politicians and members of the armed forces? After all, he's not new to this. In 2021, he called out the UN for allegedly diverting funds. So I don't think he's afraid to name names. It's just, what difference will it make if it does it?
Well, if it doesn't, those persons are undercover and will know, and it shows level of impunity. Look, the crisis we are facing is the crisis of statehood. The Nigerian state is both inefficient and not autonomous. In political science discourse, talk about inefficient state, meaning a state that cannot exert its authority, its monopoly of violence, either against no-state actors or criminal elements. So the Nigerian state is weak. Again, autonomous state means that the state is not hijacked by sectarian religious or ethnic interests. So what we are seeing in this war against insurgents is that some degree of incoherence. Nigerian state is a victim, almost a captive of religious and ethnic interests. And what that means is that some of the persons who ought to be named and shamed might be persons who persons who enjoy a very high level of religious exceptionalism, ethnic respect, and dignity. And so the notion of naming and shaming, kind of will stop short of doing that. We saw with those who are alleged to have been involved in terror financing, no prosecution. So my sense is, look, Governor Zulum knows the people should be named, but perhaps he won't name them because it will be demystifying and bringing to the reality the fact that this war is commingled with religious fanaticism, radicalism, ethnic chauvinism, such that we are not winning the war because the Nigerian state is not coherent and clear. And when I talk about Nigerian state, it means that we have very poor vetting. Look at the way we stack the federal government. Do we vet people's background? During this, at the beginning of this crisis under Jonathan, there were persons who were alleged to be implicated in one kind of thing or another. Those high offices, no effort was made to investigate, have a report, and say, well, this is not true or it's true. So we really got kind of tied up that we don't have the capacity, the independence, the neutrality of the state to fiercely execute the will and the sovereignty of the Nigerian state. So the Nigerian state is weak because it doesn't matter whether it's a secular state, religious state, whether it's a national state or ethnic state. So all this numbo jumbo, kind of impede the exercise of the clarity required in this war. So naming will help, but I guess they won't do that. Evans,
Governor Zulum said, and I quote, "We should not politicize insecurity. The president," speaking of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, "needs to listen to the people who can tell him the right thing. The president should listen to the army." End of quote. Do you sense a rift between the presidency and the Borno state government over this issue?
No, I don't sense any rift. What the governor is saying is that the president should actually listen to the army and the people. Because the reason he's saying this is because I know what he's saying. The National Security Advisor has been telling us that everything is under control. And that's a big lie. Nothing is under any control in this country in terms of insecurity. So what the National Security Advisor is saying, everything is under control. It's being managed properly. It's a lie. Nothing is under control. And Zulum is trying to tell the president to listen to the soldiers and not the National Security Advisor. That's exactly what he's saying. And
does that mean that the president is not listening to the governor? Do you get a sense of that? Like the governor's been saying, President, let's do it this way. And perhaps it's like, oh, let the NSA handle it because, that's his portfolio. Yeah. Do you sense that sort of thing?
The NSA have shown that they have no capacity or tact to handle what is going on. They have not given credible intelligence or intercepted any kind of attack. Every attack has been successful. The Borno, the barracks, everywhere when they ambush the soldiers, when they kill them, move things around, move ammunition around the country, do all the attacks, the NSA is not aware of anything that's going on. So the governor is telling the president the truth, to think deeper and listen to the people directly, or the soldiers and the governor himself. Because to tell us that everything is under control and we're having successful attacks here and there, is to say that the NSA does not really have a grip of the situation. And we must say the truth. Because sometimes we are afraid to say the truth. The NSA is not doing anything credible. The strategy they are deploying, the intelligence, they don't have it. They don't have it. So the president should listen to the soldiers directly and equip them the more, give them the right kind of moral incentive and the equipment they need to win this war. This is a war that they can actually take care of. And the earlier we do this, the better.
Sam, let me bring you in here. How do you respond to the question I asked him? And it's basically the governor is saying or insinuating that, listen, you're not listening to the right people. listening to the guys on the ground. What do you make of that?
I think I agree with. Yeah, I think there's a sense of frustration in the governor's statement. I mean, maybe it wasn't so much rift, but look, the governor is saying, look, Mr. President, we're not winning this war, like my colleague said. And the reason we're not winning this war is that you're not getting the right intelligence. And I agree that, the NSA himself, who is not really a man who has a pedigree in intelligence in that sense, apart from law enforcement, is trying to prove that he's doing well. A lot of communication, a lot of social media influencing going on, but not real traction in terms of, like I said, intercept intelligence and overcoming, degrading in significant sense the capacity of these criminals and bandits and terrorists to attack. So what Governor Zulum is saying is basically, there's a tone here that says, I'm tired. Look, Mr. President, get out of this. Don't listen to these guys. Listen to the guys who ought to know, the commanders on the field, who have stories. Because look, as part of the chief security officer of the state, he sits in Security Council with commanders, and they have anecdotes. They have discussions that are more good faith, open, and into confidence. So he has intelligence to say we're not doing well. We have a crisis. But the guys in Abuja, then they say, who played a political role, could make it look, we are doing well, we have done this, we have done that. So that's frustration, obviously. There's a sense of saying, Mr. President, smell the coffee, wake up. I don't know what I say, but definitely he's not happy with the way things are going.
And he also mentioned the sophistication of the methods that Boko Haram is now deploying. The governor apparently asked for 12 drones to combat Boko Haram, each of which would cost 5.5 million. I suppose I'm not quite certain whether each one costs $5.5 million or everything costs $5.5 million. Right, but they haven't gotten that. I mean, what do you make of that? They're asking for the equipment, what it will take to fight Boko Haram at this time, and we haven't heard much back from the federal government.
Well, I don't know what it's for. Am I to answer or?
Yeah, no, go on.
My sense would be just simple. Look, war against corruption, war against security is a big money. That's why I call it the military, business defense complex. It's about money. And again, let's not kid ourselves. There's also a lot that is a lot of corruption, a lot of all over the world, defense spending, especially in time of insecurity. Sometimes they are contrived. I think it's going to be like maybe $5 million each. I don't think it's going to be all, because it's this.
Yes, $5.5 million each. I was just confirming the figure here.
Each. Okay. So I think, look, I'm not able to say whether that's body for value, but what I would say, two things. One is that evidently we need funding to fight this. But the question is, what have we done with a lot of the equipment we acquired in the past? Some of them have gone to the hand of the terrorists. So yes, money is important, but intelligence and the political way. Again, let's get back to saying, are we sure of all our commanders? Are we sure of all the persons who are in positions of authority, their commitment to the country, and their non-involvement in any form or otherwise of the Boko Haram mission? Let's not forget, we're dealing with a revolutionary, religiously oriented terror group. And so sympathies can hobble this fight. So not just about arms and money, it's also about clarity, and also about profiling and getting back to do clear work to make sure the right people are there at the right time. I remember when the Hejrika was fighting this battle. There were groundswell against him that he was engaged in ethnic cleansing.
All right, Sam, we're going to have to leave it there.
Human rights violation.
Right. Thank you so much for your thoughts, Sam Amadi. Sam Amadi, policy strategist and governance expert, as well as Evans Ufeli, a reform advocate. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. It would obviously be very good if the governor can name these people and just let's name and shame them once and for all. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.